I will now talk to you about Crash Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, is that what it's called? And Crash 3 Warped. And maybe a little bit of Crash Team Racing. To make this video, like, good. I never played these games growing up. And I have now played them. Not through the Insane Trilogy, but the original PlayStation versions. And I think maybe that perspective is a little bit more interesting. Yeah, played them on original hardware using a scaler. Which I will not stop bragging about. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see me a lot talking about video scaling and retro games and playing old consoles and stuff like that. I want to make a video of that as well. But yeah, this is not going to be a formal review. I just want to share some of my observations. Because the thing with Crash, with 1, 2, and 3, I mean, so to just get that out of the way, I mean, the Insane Trilogy famously has really weird hitboxes, and physics and stuff. I just remember playing a store demo and immediately noticing how I just could not get any of the jumps right, and how I would slip off of platforms and ledges and stuff like that. Which with my previous attempts playing the game a little bit, right, the first game, like on the PSP and shit like that, that never happened to me. It was so noticeable. And like, I don't hate the way it looks, but that's the kind of thing. I don't think the games are particularly amazing, right? Any of them. But they still deserve better treatment than this, right? It still bugs me that people are gonna play the Insane Trilogy now and just think the games are total fucking assballs, right? It's just not fair. And, yeah. Well, I mean, if you were seeing this, you probably saw the Final Fantasy VII video as well. I didn't realize that they're both kind of going in a similar direction about, like, remakes and preservation, and, yeah, in this specific instance, clearly the goal was to bring these games back, make them available again, just in a new, updated form, and they fucked it up. Yeah, and that's why just seeing people buy them on the Switch, especially where there's, like, extra input lag and shit like that, and frame rate issues, and then say, oh, these games are so shit, I'm so frustrated. Well, it's like, my guy, you bought the Insane Trilogy. Like, obviously they're gonna be busted, right? Like, it should be, like, we should spread the knowledge more about this, you know? How bad this collection is. Yeah, I don't know. Just, yeah, I made a tweet recently. It was like, I want to drag people by the collar into my house, hand them a controller, just to see the difference. What it feels like to play the original game on real hardware with a scaler or on a CRT. It's just such a fucking difference. Yeah, that's sad, right? Obviously, the thing with the remake bums me out, but I don't think the games were that remarkable, unfortunately. I always see with 2 and 3 specifically, I always put this idea in my head that, oh, dude, like, playing them would be super fun now. I really want to do that. And then I did, and I was like, actually, it's, I feel kind of whatever about it. And see, the whole reason I'm making this video is because my most interesting observation probably was that I actually enjoyed the first Crash the most. Which is a very unpopular, uncommon opinion from what I can tell. I have not heard people say this at all. And like, I can clearly see why. Clearly the later games are more polished, are less rough around the edges. They have a little bit more variety, they have more movement options. You know, I'll get to the movement options in a bit, but like it very much feels like a Naughty Dog kind of Uncharted 2 situation almost, where you would think, oh, the second game is just so obviously clearly better. And like in the case of Uncharted, I would agree that the second game is way better. Third one, not so much. With Crash, it's not quite that uneven, I guess. But yeah, see, the thing that I liked about Crash 1, and like, I guess what a lot of people are gonna assume is like, oh, you like it because it's the hardest one? No. Like, maybe that's part of it, maybe the challenge kind of made it more memorable. I will say, like, 2 had a pretty big spike toward the end. Like, I'd say, like, the 4th world is where it actually picks up. Before that, it's very easygoing. The thing that makes the first game memorable to me is that it felt like it had the most natural pacing and the most, like, clear sense of escalation. When you start out, you are on the beach, right? And then you do the jungle level, and then you get to the wall, right? And you have to climb the wall, right? And then you're on the top, and then you fight the boss, and you see your progress on the little world map, and like you can feel things getting more and more serious with every level, right? And obviously, yeah, then once you get to the next part of the world map, it kind of goes back down a little bit. The pacing kind of relaxes a little bit more, and then you have these bridge levels, right? The most, like, design-wise, the most horrible fucking obnoxious levels of all time. But like, it really makes you feel like, oh, I'm transitioning like to a new part of the game. It's like a big deal, right? And then you have these factory levels where it's you get the sense, oh, I'm not supposed to be here, right? Like, it's a very atmospheric platformer, which is a weird word to use for a game that looks so goofy. But that's really the sense I got. I got the sense, oh, I'm on an adventure. I'm on this journey. I'm saving my weird, scary girlfriend, right? God, I just recorded the 40-minute fucking Final Fantasy video and my throat is killing me. Anyway, I mentioned these bridge levels, where things are just spread needlessly far apart. The platforms are very small. You have to jump on these stupid turtles very precisely. And like, when you press up on the D-pad after jump, Crash will sort of gain momentum, right? And it's really hard. Like, you have to find the balance between not overshooting but also going far enough. And that's very difficult because just pressing the button once means Crash will sort of keep gaining momentum. But then if you pause too early, if you brake too early with the down button, then that's gonna kill your momentum, and then you're just gonna plummet to the ground like a rock into your death. And that's bad, right? So very frustrating levels at parts, but the game still has a feel and a vibe and a pace, and it's memorable because of that. And with the later games, yeah, a big reason why that's not the case is because they have this level select thing where, yeah, they have these like 5 chunks with 5 levels each, both in Crash 2 and 3. And you can just play them in any order you like. Within a world, you can play the 5 levels out of order. And in theory, that would be a neat thing, but like, it doesn't add anything to the game. The only thing it really adds is like, when you get frustrated on one level, you have 4 other levels to kind of cool your head in, I guess. But that's really the only benefit. They don't really do anything else with this kind of system. It's not like a Mega Man where there's an actual incentive to go to certain levels early, right? And I'm not saying it needs that, but I feel like the pace and the escalation, that sense that I got from Crash 1, was way more valuable than being able to play the levels out of order for no reason, to me. And, I say Crash 2 and 3 have fewer rougher edges, and they kind of add to the mechanics a little bit, but neither of those things really amounts to much, in my opinion. I'm sure you've all seen this Mark Brown video about Mario level design, right? Where it just builds on the mechanic for the entire level, and then, expands the concept, does everything you can with it. He did a similar video for Donkey Kong, and right, that's a way you can design levels. Obviously, I'm being a little bit cheeky about it because, like, the formula of recent Nintendo games does kind of bore me a little bit. But it's still like it's still, wow, every single level has a new idea, pretty much, is guaranteed, right? And then usually they have some kind of satisfying movement mechanic as well. Like the rolling in Donkey Kong, for example. Or like Mario's sense of inertia when he moves. And then I guess the other thing that you can do is focus more on the action, like in a Mega Man, where you have a lot of tools to deal with the obstacles. And the way the enemies and the hazards kind of play off of each other makes for really interesting challenges. And then, again, just like Mario, there is a focus on speed. You can go pretty fast if you use the slide or if you use the dash in Mega Man X. And like Crash, they're just random obstacle courses, really. It's just one kind of, like, one thing that kills you after the other, and you just gotta avoid it. Obviously, I can probably describe every platformer ever made that way. But, like, it really does feel just kind of trite, and none of the hazards are that creative. If I were to do, like, a legit review, I would go more in depth with this, right? But, like, it's really just, there's a fucking, there's, like, a fucking piston that comes down and squashes you, right? I mean, that's one of their favorites that they use all the time. Or there's a bottomless pit, or there's a piranha plant. There was this game explained video a while back, where I think Johnny was his name. He kind of went into how the way they placed the obstacles was really haphazard, and like there was no structure to it at all. At least in the first game. The second and third game, not as much. They have more of a structure, I guess. But like, honestly, that difference, it's not that noticeable. It's still like random, kind of not very creative obstacles. There aren't really power-ups that change the way you play. Like, I mean, just think about Mario, where they give you a trampoline or something, and you can do a billion things with the trampoline, or you can pick up a Koopa shell and do a billion things with that, right? In Mario, they can introduce a single element, and that reinforms and recontextualizes everything you've kind of known up to this point. Whereas with Crash, a lot of the stuff just feels kind of isolated. There's not really, it's very one and done. You just avoid the thing and then you move on. And yeah, and that's just true with all three games to me. And despite the fact that that 2 and 3 they're a little bit more polished, they lose a lot of the atmosphere and the charm of the first game, I feel. And the polish doesn't make up for it. The polish doesn't make up for it because the level design, the mechanics are just nothing special, right? Yeah, and about the movements, they have the slide in Crash 2, and it's kind of fun, but like, you look at a game, I mean, it's clearly inspired by Mario 64, right? And in that game, what makes the move set so interesting, I mean, not only is it way more varied and way more satisfying the way Mario moves, again, just like the 2D games, he has inertia, he has like the sense that you need to pick up momentum, and that makes the movement satisfying. But it's also, you are always in this open-ended sandbox, right? And that makes you think about your moveset in a much more interesting way, in a much more organic way. It's not like you can just cross every gap with the slide, and with in Mario it's the long jump, right? That's the equivalent to the slide. It's not like that's just a one-size-fits-all solution. You just kind of have to think, you just have to see, can I make this work, right? Whereas in Crash, there's no reason not to use the slide all the time for every single obstacle, pretty much. And then at that point, you have to ask yourself, what does it add to the game, And there's also just a lack of things that chain into each other well, especially with Crash 3, where they add even more stuff on top. They have a double jump, but it cancels all of your speed. It cancels all of your momentum. So you do it like after a long jump, so at that point Crash is pretty fast, but then when you do the double jump, you slow to a crawl, and it feels terrible. Yeah, like I can't really understand why they made it like this, because it does not feel satisfying at all. And I don't really see, like, does it make the game more challenging or balanced or something? I don't know. I don't think it does. It would just feel better to control if it retained your speed. It would feel more fun to control. They also have these running shoes. That's like the last upgrade that you get. And it's really funny because they have time trials in Crash 3. Do they have them in Crash 2 as well? I don't even remember. But they have them in 3, and when you first start unlocking time trials, you don't know you're gonna have those running shoes at the end, right? So it's not worth doing any of them until you get the shoes, but obviously you're not gonna know that when you first play it. Obviously I didn't do the time trials because I'm a lazy bitch and I didn't really care about the game that much. But yeah, like, had I been interested in the time trials, that would have pissed me off a lot, right? Like, realizing that, oh, if I do them after I finish the game, it's gonna be way fucking easier. And, like, it's just such a thing that, like, the game does not benefit at all from locking those things away behind the progress, you know? It's more like it feels like this cheap kind of incentive to make you replay the game. It's not like any of the moves are that complicated that you can't give them to the player from the start, you know, that they're gonna be overwhelmed. I don't think it's like that. Oh yeah, there was also the Wumpa gun that breaks every fucking challenge in the game. And yeah, if you had that from the start, it would trivialize a lot of the hazards. It's like, see, it's the kind of thing that really exposes how weak the design of the Crash games is, because the very nature of how this gun works, right? You have to stand still and carefully aim at something, and then you basically remove the hazard, right? That there's no scenario where that can lead to interesting gameplay, right? Because basically what happens is that the later levels, they will just place hazards kind of in front of you that are hard to avoid. So it's like, oh, okay, I need to stand here and then take care of it, and then I can go, right? I need to take care of it with a gun, and then I can just walk past it. And that's not interesting, right? You just stand there, and then you aim a little bit, and you're completely safe when you do that. It's not like you're really making a choice. It's not like you're really... I guess it's kind of interesting when you're doing the time trials. You have to make a trade-off. But like in normal gameplay, it doesn't matter at all. And then they try a little bit to... where it's like you have maybe an enemy that's sort of moving back and forth, and the only way you can hit them with the gun is when you let them get close to you. So there's a little bit of time pressure, right? You need to shoot them before they get to you. But like that's so few and far between, that kind of stuff. And I'm assuming it's because they realized it's not really fun. It's not really it's not really a fun challenge. With this kind of control system, it just feels kind of frustrating to have to line up those shots in that amount of time. So yeah, I just don't think the mechanics are that interesting. I don't think the obstacles are that interesting. It's just kind of, you see the thing, you react to it, you learn what the dangers are for every level. What makes these games worthwhile really is the presentation and the atmosphere, and I think the first game just does that the best. Yeah, that's my hot take on Crash. I will say, I've tweeted about this a lot, but Crash Team Racing, goddammit, what a fucking masterpiece. What a good video game. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna make like a video about it, but see, this has gone on long enough. I don't really want to talk about it right now, but basically, Crash Team Racing is the Devil May Cry of kart racers. It's the Devil May Cry of kart racers. I recommend it to people who like games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Mario 64, Devil May Cry. I recommend it to that crowd. Not even the kart racer crowd. This game is too Galaxy Brain to be compared to those lowly kart racers. Diddy Kong Racing, get out of here. Yeah. What's the thing that... Is there a thing that Crash says? Like, Wah! That's the crash noise, right? Is that the crash noise? Either way, this is goodbye.